I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet, a special edition here with the dude and Guy Goldstein, who is in Israel right now and sent me one of the gnarliest pictures before of the highway of what it looks like after a ballistic missile hits it. And I pray for your safety. I pray for everybody we know's safety. I pray for the safety of Israel, and I pray for the safety of our American troops that are over there right now. Let me start by saying that. I also want to start by saying, Guy and men, doing what's right isn't always going to be popular. And there's nobody that realizes that more than President Trump. This is not the most popular position he could have taken. But there is a reason, Guy, I believe, in my humble opinion, God saved him. And that was to save the world. He doesn't care about optics or politics or the midterms. He looks at Iran as an existential threat to the world and to the United States of America. And for what he did, it might not be popular and he might take a lot of hits for him, but it was 100% the right move.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I think people sometimes forget is President Trump had the option to just be ridiculously wealthy, famous, and hobnob with all of the people that everyone wanted to hobnob with, and not get into politics. But he felt the need to get into politics. He could have gone home after his first term. Say, well, I did it. I've been president. That was pretty cool. But he didn't. He fought to come back. President Trump has proven time and time again that he has a sense of purpose that goes beyond what's fun for President Trump, or for Donald Trump, let's say, because he has shown a dedication to doing what needs to be done for America. He did it in the 90s. It was for New York. I remember stories about all the things that he would do for New York to try to save New York when New York was on its ass.
And the early 80s, really. The early 80s was the on-ramp for him, was saving the Commodore Hotel. But I just want to go to the dude quickly. It really is exceptional. And the reason I'm bringing this up is being a conservative, I've always said, is not popular. Okay. If I wanted to be popular, man, I wouldn't have chosen conservatism. And it's good to see Golan, who just joined, not to be even more confused as I'm introducing the show. But dude, what he did might not be popular right now in America, but as we're witnessing, this will be popular around the world when everything stabilizes. And we don't know when it's going to stabilize. And as he just announced, we don't know when this will end and if more troops will, God forbid, die. But he's doing the right thing.
Yeah, and the right thing is not popular. You listen to all of these world leaders talking. They're saying, but you were in middle of negotiations. You can't do this in middle of negotiations. Negotiations ended effectively, and this thing was signed, sealed, and delivered the day he started slaughtering his own population. So the day Khomeini ordered the slaughter of his population, between 30,000 and 100,000 of his own innocent, unarmed civilians were slaughtered in the streets. That was it. So when they said negotiate, the only way out for the Iranians at that time, the regime, was to capitulate. They had to give in to all of the demands that the Americans made, which was no ballistic missiles, no nuclear weapons, no more sponsoring of terrorist groups, and no more killing your own civilians. Those are like the four core demands that the Americans made. And the Iranians just didn't understand their position. Remember when Trump was telling Zelensky, you don't have the cards? Remember he was telling him, you don't have the cards. Make a deal. You don't have the cards. The Russians are going to win this thing if we just let go of the gas pedal, feeding you guys all the weapons and money that we're giving you guys. You don't have the Iranians did not have the cards. And now they're dead. They're dead and they're dying. And not just the current supreme leader, but the former president, the current president, Ahmadinejad, the former president, he's gone too. They actually knew where he was because he was under house arrest.
I know. I think that was remarkable. And Golan, the reason I'm bringing up this point is because I think there are a lot of people that are out there that obviously everybody's feed is being inundated with some of the worst and most toxic things a person could read about the mistakes that are going on and everything. So we all have a friend, and his daughter's 27 years old, and she really wanted me to do a live episode, and we promised to do a live episode. But this episode is for her and her age demographic the most, for me the most, because I want her to understand that this isn't popular. Not everything we do good in the world will be popular at that moment. That's why it's called history sometimes. History, why we look back on history. And this is one of those moments history will look back on and say, Donald Trump, was the man.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. It's been 47 plus years of the IRGC undermining U.S. interest, Israeli interest, the West's interest, basically exporting terror, backing proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas and the Houthis, and threatening regional instability and much more. Not to mention their nuclear desires. Not to mention the idea of a long-range missile program that has only been expanding. They said within 3 to 5 years they'd be able to launch missiles into basically every part of Europe. This is a terrorist organization that as much as I know we were sitting in negotiations, as men may have pointed out, the negotiations, it's not the first time that Iran has been told, we're going into negotiations now. Don't worry, nothing's going to happen. And then we destroyed something. And in this case, we destroyed everything. And it was the right thing to do. And I hope we go all the way into decapitating not just the supreme leader, as he was known, and 40 of his top capos, but also the entire regime.
Well said. And for everybody that's listening, we all have skin in the game. Obviously, Guy Goldstein has skin in the game. He lives there with his family. Golan's whole family is over there. The last time around, his mom's apartment got shelled with a ballistic missile. My sister,
Direct hit.
my sister, my family, they all live there. Many of them live there. Okay, so we all have skin in the game of this isn't just us saying, well, let's just go to war. We all have family members. And Guy, if we lose you during the show, and I don't mean literally, we will see you very soon. We know you'll get back to us as quickly as possible. But Guy,
just explain that, Judah, so people don't have the wrong idea.
Guy's in Israel right now, and for any moment, ballistic, we might hear sounds and sirens over his head, which means he's got to run right to the safe room. And a safe room, sadly, is not, it isn't there for a ballistic missile. But Guy, I want to get some facts from this show more than anything. So fact number one, no country that's ever built enriched uranium like Iran has never not built a missile afterwards. They've always gone nuclear. And number two, ballistic missiles are offensive weapons, not defensive weapons. And Iran sure as hell seems like they have thousands of stockpile of these ballistic missiles.
So I think it's I'm not a nuclear expert, but I think that there's been enough out in public about this to understand that the threshold for civilian nuclear energy is relatively low. I think it's sub 10% enriched. The threshold for weapons grade uranium is 90%. The Iranians had pushed all the way up to 60% by every known measure before Operation Midnight Hammer. Right, that's six times as enriched as you need to get if all you're pursuing is civilian means. So why do you need weapons grade uranium to pursue civilian power? And that's before you even get to the question of, well, the Iranian power infrastructure is an absolute shambles because their entire infrastructure in Iran is just corruption. It's falling apart. They have blackouts every single day, not because they don't have energy. They sit on one of the world's largest oil reserves, but because of corruption. And they were never going to do anything for their people. That's not what they're there for. So that's the nuclear question. As for ballistic missiles can only be offensive. They go from one place to another. They're taking high explosives to a different place to explode over there. That's the opposite of defense. If you look at the sorts of programs that Israel has, the Iron Dome program, the Arrow program, for example, the Iron Beam program, all of those programs.
That's also known as the Marjorie Taylor Greene program.
That's right. That's the Jewish ground laser. But all three of those programs, which are some of the most advanced military technologies in the world, are designed to stop things coming from far away to exploding over here, right? That's defensive technology, right? And thank God it's been very effective. It has tragically not been 100% effective. There is no defensive technology that is 100% effective. We've had a number of incidents.
I love what you're talking about, man. I love what Guy is talking about. He's talking about, so they have ballistic missiles, right? And every other missile in that region. And Israel had to adapt and build defensive weapons, which aren't just saving Israel right now. There's obviously saving many American troops who are located and stationed around Israel. But I want to go to something, though, another thing that's being spread around, which is this. And again, there's more rumors about the schoolgirls that got killed. Everybody's saying it was by the USA or by an Israeli missile. It wasn't. Even Iran has admitted that they're the ones that killed all those schoolgirls in Israel by a missile that went awry. Okay,
You mean in
Man.
Iran?
yes, in Iran.
Yeah. So the sorry.
No, after you.
All right, the IRGC, the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Unit, which is it's separate from the Iranian army. This is the Ayatollah's private killing army. They go out there. These are the worst of the worst. You could compare them to like the SS within the German army. These guys are the guys that do the most brutal stuff. They came out and admitted after video evidence was presented of them firing this missile and then it failing midair and dropping right down on the girls' school, and killed all those kids. I don't know if they were kids or teenagers or whatever, but immediately you had the Dave Smiths and all the other idiots of the world coming out blaming Israel for killing all these people. So the IRGC themselves came out and admitted that this thing failed. I do want to touch on the other part of what Guy was just talking about. It takes enriching uranium to 3 to 5%, which is where you get reactor fuel. So for energy needs, that takes 70 to 80% of the total effort required to make weapons grade uranium. So to take it from, I think it's 0.075 to 3% takes 80% of the work. From 3%, 90%, which is where you get a bomb, is only in that other 20%. So they don't need any kind of nuclear program in that country for energy needs because they're oil rich, and they've proven that they're trying to make a breakout for a bomb. Plus, when countries are doing nuclear research for medical needs or even civilian power, it's all done above ground. There's a facility, there's a building, you have scientists, it's audited, you could see it. These guys are deep underground under mountains. There's no plausible reason why they would be doing that. Now, you have some of the wokesters, the woke Reich, the Tucker Carlsons of the world coming out saying, well, they needed to get to a bomb so that they have something to negotiate with. Okay. How'd that work out for you?
I didn't even see that, and I want to go to Golan. The reason I'm talking about these things is because we knew America should have seen this coming. America should have seen after the Gaza-Israel war all the lies that were being told. And the second that this school, what happened in Iran, which is horrific with these girls dying, was not caused by America, its allies. It was caused by the Iranians. Okay. It was not caused by us. And Golan, it goes to show you that with ballistic missiles, how dangerous these ballistic missiles are and how many they have, Golan. I mean, I get it that the world America especially, doesn't have a certain appetite for certain things, especially after, something they will never let us forget, is the forever wars and the regime changes. The world is a better place today without the Ayatollah. I mean, it's just plain and simple. I mean, ask any normal person, are we better off with the Ayatollah or without the Ayatollah?
I think there's a couple of things you mentioned.
Except the Washington Post. And can somebody read the Washington Post? Yeah, can somebody please read that? The Washington Post eulogy to and I said it to Mend. I showed it to Mend, and he didn't believe me when I was reading it.
Wait, I'm gonna pull that up. But while I'm doing that, I will answer your other question, which is first of all, of course, we're better off without one of those evil men to exist, basically since Hitler, maybe the most evil man in my lifetime to exist on Earth. Yeah, I think we're okay without that guy around. But also, let's remember that, as you pointed out, all the lies that are constantly being lobbed around. I mean, Gaza is a perfect example of this, right? Where they were talking about kids dying. They were talking about schools being bombed. They were talking about the number of casualties that were women that turned out to be men or that turned out to not exist at all. Let's remember all of that. And let's be honest, we don't even know if a school got hit. Right? We're also whenever we go, what a tragedy. And yet, and then we kind of try and justify it. My answer is, I don't even know what you're talking about. Show me that the school got hit. Once I know the school got hit, then you can talk to me about the fact that it was your rocket. Right now, remember, a hospital got hit. No, it didn't. Turns out it was a parking lot. We know over and over again there's nothing but lies coming out of these places. So whenever you hear the Red Crescent has something to say, I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and believe what the Red Crescent is telling me about anything. Number one, number two. So all of that to me is a bunch of nonsense. We also know that in Gaza, at least 10% of all the rockets they were lobbing at innocent people were falling on their own people, and of course the death count from their own rockets was always being counted amongst the dead that Israel was killing. So again, just all BS, all nonsense. Same thing here. We should know better. Those of us who do know better heard the news and basically either ignored it or rolled our eyes or assumed it was them. And if it turns out, by the way, that it was something, I saw someone, I'm not on social media, my wife was like, my friend posted, and she's very educated. She has a degree from blah, blah, blah. And she said, if in fact the girls' school was hit, this is a war crime. And I said, no, it's a war crime if Trump or whoever it was that made the call was like, hey, look, a girls' school, fire at that. Otherwise, it's not a war crime. It's called collateral damage. It's real sad. I guess maybe don't be a terrorist organization for 50 years. So I got very little sympathy for everybody. Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry.
So this is a story I've been writing about today, actually. This was because there are two important things. One thing, just to clarify about this school, it was on a military base, right? It was on an IRGC base, not the People's Army, the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guards, the bad guys base. That same naval base was being used apparently to fire on assets around the region. So this wasn't.
That's why they put it there.
No. Ostensibly, and I'm going to say this with giving more benefit of the doubt than they deserve, but in the case of Iran, it's not exactly the same as in Gaza, because on army bases in the United States as well, they have schooling facilities for the children of soldiers. It's not an unusual thing in most of the world to have facilities for the families of soldiers on base, but it does mean that if there's a war going on and you're preparing for war, you take your families and move them off base. Right.
Yeah, but when I say that's why they put them there, I don't mean that's why they built the school there. What I mean is, if you are in the middle of a skirmish, okay, you don't leave your kids in the school in order to be targets while you are launching missiles at Bahrain and at the UAE and at American installations all over the world and at Israel. If you do that, you are basically saying, hey, this is a target.
But I will tell you something that's more important than that, because the IRGC are bad guys, and we know. Here's what matters more. When this story came out, the moment the story came out, I already told people they're going to try to make this Al-Ahli. Al-Ahli was that hospital in Gaza that right near the beginning of the war, there was a hospital with 500 people massacred, then 700 people massacred, then 500, then 300, then it was 20 people in a parking lot.
This is the one I was referencing, yeah.
That's the one you were referencing. But the Western media, in actual fact, were the people who have the most guilt to carry for that story. The BBC took that, ran with it, turned it into an international headline that did massive damage to Israel's ability to operate during the war. It dramatically changed the dynamic of the entire war because it limited Israel's options in ways that it did not have to have had them limited, and it costed Israeli soldiers' lives, it costed Israeli civilians' lives, and it costed Palestinian civilians' lives because of the fact that that one incident, escalated by the media into an international war crime, became a chain on the legs of Israel operating during the war. The European governments used it to withhold arms from Israel. The Biden administration used it as an excuse to start pulling back the delivery of material for the war. It was a major, major incident, and it was something that I think the international media did not pay nearly high enough a price for doing.
And the head of the BBC, when he was asked later if he got it wrong, he said, yeah, I got it wrong. They said, do you feel bad about it? You know what he said? No, he didn't even say oopsie. You know what he said? I don't feel bad about that. I reported what I thought was right at the time. It was wrong. Yeah, that's just the way it goes. Not even feeling bad about it.
Okay, men to Guy's point, though.
And I do have that the Washington Post obit up.
Let me get to men first, and then we'll get back to that. But man, to what Guy's point is, obviously, you don't even need the BBC anymore when you have people like Dave Smith, Tucker Carlson, and all these different people that are so willing to pick up, man, on an obvious lie. And secondly, man, sadly, 3 troops have lost their lives. And this for the woke Reich is a great talking point, okay? Instead of it being a tragedy that 3 American troops are fighting for civilization, for the future of civilization, they're going to use this as ammo of Trump not being America first and why we shouldn't have been there in the first place, man.
So, okay, first, let's touch on that school thing for a second. It's a tragedy that the schoolgirls got killed. It's the fault of the IRGC. They fired a missile. It misfired. It fell on them. They're dead. End of story. The fact that media is running with it, forget about the woke Reich, Dave Smith lunatics out there. But media, actual mainstream media, reported on that story as well. And as Guy pointed out last time with the Israeli thing, that is where the real guilt lies. They should know better. They should wait. They should know that when you put out a report by Reuters or New York Times or whatever, saying that one side bombed an innocent school with kids in it, it's going to light the street on fire. You're going to have these lunatic Islamists out there immediately beheading people, and they did it. They do that.
They do know. That's why they do it. They do it because they're actively participating in this conflict against America.
Excellent point. Excellent point. Okay. And then as far as the American service people dying, when Trump announced this war, he laid out all of the time, not all of them actually, because I have a list of all of them. He laid out a list of times the Iranians have killed, maimed, and slaughtered American service people in the region and around the world. I've been doing that. Every time somebody, was posting, and we only do it for people with massive followings that are posting misinformation. This is not our war. This is not America first. We start out with the 47 years the Iranian regime has been targeting and killing Americans. And it lists 1979 when they took over the revolution and they took Americans hostage. 1983, they provided the support to Hezbollah for the Marine barracks bombing. And it goes and goes. There's over 50 examples all the way up until 2026. So there's a clear reason why we're doing this. And it's really tragic that we lost 3 American troops, but we've lost thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Americans to this Iranian regime. And we would continue to lose thousands if we let them continue down their path, if not millions. So the calculus is we go in, it's going to be a little bit painful right now, especially for the Israelis, because they're going to take the brunt of what comes out of Iran as they try to retaliate, but also for all the Arab neighbors, because Iran has attacked 7 or 8 countries so far. You're talking about Bahrain, Kuwait, Jordan, Egypt. I mean, they're just firing indiscriminately all over the place. Even Qatar got hit.
Yeah, I know. Tucker's home and Golan, for the record, this is something we spoke about on the show for weeks of why they needed to get everything into place. I don't know why anybody would be I don't know why any of those countries are in shock. Us 4 have been discussing that if Iran gets hit, they're going after everybody. So if you could touch on that, but if you could please read the Washington Post eulogy. Yeah. This is not a Babylon Bee. The Babylon Bee for tomorrow or today is the next Ayatollah, and they superimpose Tucker's face. But I want you to read the Washington Post. I was going to go with the New York Times. I knew that would be trash. That was trash. But this is a whole other level of, I don't even know what to call it.
Yeah, don't worry. The New York Times did not disappoint either.
No, they didn't disappoint, but the Washington Post beat them.
Oh, no. Washington Post took it to another level. So the obituary said, Adolf Hitler, beloved community organizer and amateur landscaper. Oh, no, sorry. That's the other one. Let me read this one. It says, with his bushy white beard and easy smile, Ayatollah Khomeini cut a more avuncular figure in public than his perpetually scowling but much more revered mentor. And he was known to be fond of Persian poetry and classic Western novels, especially Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. Some Iranians who knew Ayatollah Khomeini before he became supreme leader described him as a closet moderate. Goes on from there, but you get the point. So, really sweet guy, almost Santa Clausian, I would say, in the way they describe him. And Les Miserables, I'm a fan. So I think maybe we would have got along.
Do you remember what they said about al-Baghdadi when he was killed?
Remind me.
Yeah, refresh us.
I believe the president said he died like a dog, to quote one of the greatest one of the greatest speeches of all time.
Yeah, no, I think it's our president. Yeah, said he died like a dog. And I loved how
That's right.
President Trump today referred to, the Ayatollah. It was very different than the Washington Post.
The Washington Post referred to al-Baghdadi as an austere religious scholar.
That's right.
And there we are. And Guy, I want to ask you a question because you're on the ground there. How scary is it? How surreal is it? You have a son, you have a wife, you have, well, I mean, when you hear those sirens, how hard is it to live right now? I mean, I know I was speaking to my sister and she was saying it's really hard just to take a shower because you're scared to death of every time you hear the sirens. And the reason I'm bringing this up, Guy, is because you have as much skin in the game as anybody right now. You're willing to risk your life to live in Israel so there could be a free Iran. So God bless you, my friend. That is an incredible thing. And for anybody to say otherwise, to the Israelis or anybody right now really in that region, everybody's life is on the line for a free Iran.
So, look, it's really surreal to start with, because on the one hand, you're constantly thinking about the fact that any minute now there's going to be a siren. So every decision you make is dictated. I had to go to the supermarket. Well, do I go to the supermarket that I usually go to, or do I go to the place to go somewhere closer to home to get some supplies so that it's only a 10-minute drive and then I can be back if something happens. I needed to go pick up some medication, whatever. Every decision is based on how far away am I from my safe room? How far away am I from my family? When you leave home, there are safe rooms everywhere. Everywhere you go, the first thing you do is, you make sure you know where the safe room is. And then there's the feed. There is the constant feed. You are constantly getting alerts, because the way that this works is as soon as they recognize a launch from Iran, you get the first alert. That alert says a launch has been identified in Iraq, missiles incoming. At the same time, a whole lot of American Israeli heroes are in the skies fighting those things like some sort of scene out of Independence Day, buzzing around, knocking out drones, taking out missiles, firing into space. And they've got about 8 minutes. Speaking of alerts, they've got about 8 minutes to stop everything that's coming. And most of the time they do. And so some of the times you never even get to the real siren that says go into the bomb shelter. You only get the one that says get close. And so it's this constant, now, add to that the fact that you've got families at home, all the, school is obviously canceled because God, the first thing Israel does as soon as anything starts is they do not send your children to the school, because that would be the single most horrific thing that ever happened in this country if there was kids in a school and it got hit, right? We understand that, so we keep our kids close. The kids are at home. That means you don't get to talk about it. You have to you put on a face, you play games, you make the bomb shelter somewhere fun. Ours is filled with sweets and toys and, surprises. Why? Because we don't want our kids to grow up traumatized. They've been through 2.5 years of war already. Before that, they went through a year of civil unrest. Before that, they were growing up in COVID. These kids have been through enough. And so what we end up doing is the grown-ups have to bury these emotions in order to try to make this a manageable experience for kids. I was at a concert just before the war started, and one of the things that was really powerful was it was a concert for families, and all of the kids were having such a great time. That the singers were singing sort of really patriotic songs. It was beautiful. And I looked around the room, and there were so many adults that you could see their eyes watering. You could see them holding back the tears, because for the kids, this was a fun event. And for the adults, it was pushing them to the brink of breakdown. And so it's a surreal experience. It's an emotionally draining experience. It's an exhausting experience, because we're up all hours of the night waiting to make sure our kids are safe. But if it succeeds, it'll have been worth it. And I say that as someone my first message that I sent this morning wasn't to anyone that I know in Israel. It was to my Iranian friend, to make sure that his family were okay, because he and I have been talking about the fact that one day we'll be able to have a beer in Tehran for a decade now. And when the bomb started, my first was him. And you know what he said? He said, it feels like a dream. It's a dream I don't yet dare dream, because it feels like a yoke that's been on my neck for 43 years. He's 43 years old, so he wasn't there at the revolution. But the yoke that's been on my neck for 43 years is being taken off. I don't
That
even
was
want to see
absolutely beautiful, Guy, and absolutely, God, you painted that picture.
Can I just explain real quick something for our audience? So in Israel, it's required for every place to have safe rooms, and those are in-unit rooms. So it's basically a reinforced concrete room built inside private apartments or private houses. That's for the small stuff that's coming from, usually what was coming from Gaza, or was coming from Hezbollah. Hezbollah a little bigger, but from Gaza certainly. The idea was every room now since the knees, or every apartment rather, or is built. One of the bedrooms is built like this. It's reinforced. The windows are reinforced. Everything's reinforced. So that's where you go. It was like during the Gulf War, during the Iraqi Scud attacks. So everyone will go. In addition to that, there's a miklat. Miklat is the underground shelter. This is the bigger thing. It's usually communal. It's like a basement. And that's where you go for something like what's coming from Iran, because the missiles that if one, if they launched 150 or 170 missiles towards Israel, I believe two at last count got through the defenses, but those two cause a lot of damage because the missiles coming from Iran, or these ballistic missiles, are so massive that they can take out an entire apartment complex. So you don't stay in your room, because even in a safe room, that's gonna get damaged on the way. So you go further down, it's longer stays, it's communal. They have a bathroom down there and all sorts of stuff. So just so everyone can paint that picture, it's group protection, and especially when you consider the entire thing that just happened in Gaza, which is important to kind of parallel. They had more tunnels than the London Underground, and not a single civilian was allowed to go into them. Israel is a country built, deliberately designed for protection of its citizens, for group protection, for individual protection. It's required. It's paid for by the government. This is something that really matters in terms of how a government and how a people take care of each other and take care of their citizens.
Thank you for that. And man, I want to get to you quickly, not quickly, take as much time as you want. But what I think is amazing that people are really failing to miss, and I know this has to be going on in Trump's head, is we pulled off another impossible mission. I mean, this is like if you watch, Mission Impossible movies, this is out of movies what he's done between Venezuela, between so many of, and you have to look at people like Pete Hegseth, who he's appointed the Minister of Defense of off the what is it now?
War.
The Minister
Secretary of War.
the Minister of War, and it's really amazing, man. And they're not getting enough credit for it. They took out in the first day, it's like what, the top 40 people within we're not even 48 hours into this war. People make it sound, man, like we've been at war for a month and a half. We're less than 48 hours in, man, and it goes to show you what Greg Gutfeld brought up years ago. If social media were around during Nazi Germany, we'd all be speaking German, man. And our troops and President Trump and his cabinet deserve the credit that they should. This is an amazing job they pulled off, man, with the help, obviously, of Israel.
Yeah. So the way we talked about this the other day, and it actually did play out that way. They had Israel go in first. Israel attacked. The response with the Gerald R. Ford in Haifa, all of a sudden, America's under attack. You don't need any congressional approval. Not that they did, because Obama bombed 7 countries without any congressional approval. So it's funny to see these guys,
Well, can we clarify that for our audience too? Is there's a difference between going to war and a military action. Those are two entirely different things. For military action, you do not need congressional approval. To actually execute a war, you do, and it's a different thing. And even that's constitutionally debatable.
Congressional approval is required to declare war.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Everything short of declaring war is something that is entirely the president and the president's discretion.
And again, all you have to do, I want people to have answers. And man, I want people to know. All he had to do is notify, a certain amount of the Senate, right, which he did, and then they have 60 days to say you can't. 50 to 60 days, right, to say yes you can or no you can't. So he did everything 100% correct, man. But to the bigger point, this is an incredible mission, man. That's been less than 2 days, not 2 years, not 2 months. We're not there forever. Like, people, relax.
It's
Just a
also,
couple of clarifications, though, on the operational parts of the mission and the things that are publicly available information. The publicly available information is that this operation has been coordinated for months between the United States and Israel. It is entirely a joint operation. It has been from the start. There were a number of B-2 bombers that flew all the way out from the United States to participate in the initial strikes. So it wasn't, President Trump doesn't need to make excuses for why he goes to war in Iran. Sometimes justice is the right reason.
Yeah, but Guy, the
He
reason
promised the help was on the way, help came.
Guy, the reason sometimes, and this is why I'm going to with men, the reason sometimes you have to is because you have to make the American citizen realize what we're doing is the miraculous right now. It's
Hey,
absolutely
that's okay.
insane.
All I'm saying is it's important to note that this wasn't Israel went first, then they attacked Israel, then America joined. It was Israel and America coordinated from the beginning. Israel was responsible for particularly decapitation attacks and taking out the air defense. The United States, my guess is, was bringing the big guns to take out the big targets. I don't know what targets were assigned to who, but that was the way that the operation was discussed. And we do know that at least 4 B-2s flying out of the United States were doing this, which is important, not only because it's cool as hell, but because it shows that America's global strike capability today can reach anywhere in the world with the most devastating weapons ever created, and nobody can stop them.
Well said, man.
yeah. So look, they took out once again, they took out all the top leadership in Iran, their army. What are the Iranians going to do? So they lashed out at their neighbors, all the countries that host U.S. air bases, even though Saudi Arabia publicly said that they were not going to participate in this war and you can't use our air bases. Qatar said the same. They all got attacked by Iran. So that worked out really well for them. I was talking to my kid about this and he's like, so what's going to happen? Can Iranians hit us here? I said, thank God they can't. We're safe. We're in America. He's like, so what are they going to do? I said, but, under the previous administration, there were a lot of people that came into this country. A lot of them are called sleeper cells and they're going to try to attack. And he's like, where? And I said, well, big venues. They're going to want to get as many people as possible. And then today we saw that attack in Austin, Texas, where a guy yelling Allahu Akbar with this property of Allah t-shirt on got out. He was a Senegalese guy from Senegal, a black guy from Senegal. Don't know if he's an illegal alien. Got out and
no, he was not. He was natural.
So he fired his pistol through the car, and then he got out with a rifle and just started mowing down kids at a bar in Austin. Terrible, tragic, horrible. But this is what we need to be vigilant for. We need to look out for this stuff.
I'm happy you brought that up, Mend, because Golan, there's a reason they call them sleeper cells, okay? So for anybody to blame if a sleeper cell is activated on President Trump is a jackass, okay? Eventually, those sleeper cells are going to be awoken, okay? It could be now, it could be in a year, it could be in 3 years. God willing, it doesn't happen. God willing, our FBI is on top of everything. It's a big God willing, but go on. There's a reason they're called sleeper cells. They're not here just to have fun and acclimate and, one day get the call. Their goal is one day to get activated.
And by the way, sleeper cells are usually planted so far in advance. You're talking years in advance in many cases that they're just waiting for instruction. This is like Manchurian Candidate type of thing. They don't activate because of who's in the Oval Office. They activate because hostile actors decide the time is right for activation. It's just that literally is why they're called sleeper cells. They are there sleeping, waiting to be awoken. When intelligence agencies talk about Iranian proxy networks or any other foreign linked operatives, this is what they're talking about. They're talking about long-term strategic positioning. This is not spontaneous, Trump's in office, so now's the time to do something because blah, blah, blah. So, the number of people who are blaming Trump or poised to blame Trump or any of this, by the way, any of the stuff Iran's been doing, Iran was doing it long before Trump was in office, long before Trump was in office the first time. So the fact that finally an American president said enough is enough, finally, now that since Israel had stripped away the artifice of Iran's power, everyone was just worried, what was Iran going to do? Iran could take over and destroy everything. And then Israel and America in joint attacks kind of said, oh, look, paper tiger. kind of like what happened with Russia during the Ukraine war. And so once that was clear, there was no reason not to do this, not to take out this abysmal evil. And again, the idea that any of this had anything to do with Trump being in office is ludicrous. The only thing that had something to do with Trump being in office was that Trump said, now's the time to stop.
Well said. And Guy, before I go back to you, man, I want to bring up something important. And I heard somebody bring this up. When you look at Hegseth, right? So Hegseth, you look at his youth, you look at Rubio, you look at his youth. These are people that have a memory of what went wrong with Iraq and Afghanistan. Okay. And I look at it as rather insulting to group together Trump's administration, who is very knowledgeable of our past mistakes. And we could almost guarantee that they have plan one, plan two, they have every scenario right now mapped out, man. And I'm tired of them not getting enough credit for the job they are doing, which is spectacular.
It's interesting if you look at this through the lens of the past administrations, Obama and Biden. And Obama paid a ransom to Iran to free our sailors. There was a Navy ship out in the Gulf that the Iranians captured, and the guys were all on their knees with their hands above their heads. It was the most humiliating moment. We should have bombed them at that point. But instead, Obama sent a plane full of cash, pallets of cash, to get those guys out. Now you're looking at operations that Trump is undertaking. He's settled a lot of wars. I don't know how many at this point. There's tons of them. And then he did the Maduro action. We're doing action against Cuba, squeezing them. Cuba's not gonna fall. Democracy is going to come to Cuba. The people of Cuba are finally going to be free of their dictatorship, and we're doing it to Iran. So when you look at each one of these things, the common thread is we're going in with barely any military, very little boots on the ground, if any. It's clean, it's fast, it's in and out. He does not want to be bogged down. So what was the problems with those old wars? Is that they were forever wars. We wound up in Afghanistan for 25 years and they hate us, and Taliban is still there beating their women and banging their goats. We've gotten nowhere with that. It's done nothing. But here we are.
Thank you for the levity. It's needed. Thank you.
This guy comes in and he does the thing in Venezuela. You know, the Democrats were going crazy. Why aren't you doing anything about Venezuela? Then when he did something, they're like, oh, you haven't done enough. You're just going to get this guy. It was perfect. Take out this guy. Whoever comes up next, say, listen, are you Delcy Rodriguez? Are you going to work with us? Or do we have to send another team in and grab you? And that is the way to do it. It's not about trying to get them a new regime in Venezuela. We don't really care. We just don't want them to be a terrorist supporting regime. We don't want them to be the regime of corruption that's robbing their own people. But if Rodriguez is the next person to run that country, great. With Iran, he gave them that off ramp.
Many. I mean, you're talking about like he literally was like a highway, and every quarter of a mile was an exit.
He gave them a list of demands. It was very, very simple. No nuclear, no ballistic, no terror supporting. Don't kill your own people. Very simple. They couldn't do it. They came back thinking that they had some sort of power play. It's funny because I now see the new chief of the Iranian military saying, we haven't unleashed our big weapons yet. Wait, it's coming. I'm like, these people are literally delusional. It's like Baghdad Bob all over again. And if you don't know who it is,
for people that just so you know, because we bring up that name a lot, for people that don't remember who Baghdad Bob was, he was Saddam Hussein's spokesperson, and he would come on the news every day, pretty much, and say, "It's going great. We're winning this war.
We're killing the Americans." He was hiding in a garage and there was an American tank outside. Yeah. And he was still claiming we're winning. They're running home. They miss their dogs, the Americans. They can't stay here. We're killing them in the streets. So the Iranian.
By the way, can I just for a moment speak about the forever war thing? I keep hearing people bringing up the forever war thing. What is a forever war? Let's define this, okay? A forever war is a conflict with no clear objectives, with no defined end state, with no exit strategy. It's an aimless generational slog of nothingness. That it's like we've seen what a forever war is. That open-ended commitment to who knows what. This is a fundamentally different thing. Right? The Trump administration and Israel, by the way, collectively have defined and been very clear about narrow, concrete goals from the beginning. They wanted to, and they said, think of how many times you heard Trump say this: Iran can't have nuclear weapons, right? He wanted to disrupt nuclear breakout potential. He wanted to
thank you. I was going to bring that up, so I'm happy you did.
over and over and over again. He said that he wanted to degrade Iran's military strike capability. He wanted to reshape regional threats. It was very specific stuff. And he said it over and over and over again before he attacked, over and over again, and again after he attacked, right? That's not open-ended nation building. It's mission-specific military pressure with a defined end game. So anyone saying forever war is trying to gin up some kind of reflection of what happened in Iraq in order to achieve a goal. And that goal is destabilization. We can ignore them because we know they are lying.
Okay, I don't want to lose, before we lose Guy to another air raid sound on his phone, Guy, I also want you to talk about, because people, this is something that isn't explained enough. I don't know if it even pays for them to explain it. It actually is a pretty easy concept. Everybody in America is scared to death of China. What President Trump has done with Venezuela and now with Iran is cut essentially the oil testicles off of all the cheap oil China wants to get a hold of. I mean, the brilliance of this strategically with China and Russia is absolutely amazing.
And Venezuela?
And Venezuela.
Right. And
Well, yeah, thank you.
And so I think that's actually a really important point you're bringing up, Judah, which is that the way to look at these theaters
I'm
isn't
glad I brought up one today. Thank you.
But the way to look at these theaters isn't as standalone theaters, and it's not about Iran per se, it's not about Venezuela per se, it's not about Cuba per se. Each of those regimes is legitimately evil and needed to go. Each of those regimes, or two of the three regimes so far, have gotten what they deserve, and God willing, Cuba Libre, let's go. Having said that, this is all part of a coordinated geopolitical strategy pushing back on China, and what really matters is that China has a lot of tentacles in the world today. The Belt and Road Initiative is very far along. It's very well developed. But Iran and Venezuela are...
Can I just say one thing? I want to give you and Men so many kudos for our Friday show. I encourage everybody to listen to it because you two talking about that was absolutely mesmerizing. And I want to thank you both for your information on that.
Thank you. So the Belt and Road Initiative, which is, listen to the Friday episode for more detail about what it is very far along. Iran and Venezuela aren't just key oil exporters to China. They're also the keystones of the South American and the Central Asian parts of that initiative. What he's doing is effectively cutting China's global plan for global domination off at the knees. What he's done without having to face down Beijing, without even having it with barely having to engage in a conflict. Let's be honest. What we're seeing now is nothing compared to a superpower war. This is not a superpower war. It's not a Vietnam. It's not an Iraq. This is preventing the war with China that China has been planning for. China has been building up its military for. China has been preparing for. China has been developing technology for. China has been developing a navy for. China wanted this war and still wants this war. It developed an alliance with Russia, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, all of the bad guys on the world stage for one purpose. And that purpose wasn't because everybody wanted cheap Chinese food. That purpose was because China had ambitions to become the dominant power in the world. And it was the only way to do that is to take out the king. And who was the king? America. China was coming from America, and Donald Trump just kicked the legs out from under them. And if this succeeds, it will potentially humble China back into a position where it actually has to step back from those ambitions, either for decades or forever, because they have other problems coming down the pipe.
Yeah, extremely well said. And man, to the point, I know that this is really hard to message. This is like one of those things that you always talk about. If you can't explain something very quickly, you've lost the narrative. But this is the narrative. This is the actual realistic narrative. And people are not being taught this in schools. I'm glad you guys are amazing parents that your children could ask you these questions. And I'm glad people could ask these questions. That's the point of the show. But man, what he just brought up is President Trump is literally trying to save America's future right now on all fronts of this of every hemisphere, AOC. Okay, the lower, the upper, the north hemisphere, the
left, right.
Left, right, center. Man, it's miraculous what he's trying to do. And again, I go back to it, man. He's not thinking about the midterms. He's thinking about the troops. He's thinking about our future. That's what President Trump is thinking about right now. That's the weight of the world that he has on him right now. And he is stepping up to the plate. God bless that man.
So, if you take the China thing out of it, which Guy so eloquently laid out, take that out, this war still makes 1,000% sense on its own merit.
Absolutely.
If you just looked at Iran and you looked at the mayhem that they've caused in the Middle East, the millions of lives that they've caused to be slaughtered, all of that stuff, on that merit alone, it makes sense. Then you add the 47 years of them attacking American troops and killing Americans on an untold scale. The one that I like to point out is the Beirut barrack bombing, where they killed 242, I think it was, U.S. Marines in Beirut in 1982. Anyone could look that up. But there's countless of other examples. They supplied all the IEDs to Iraq, which killed our guys and maimed our guys. There are thousands of Americans that are back home now missing limbs because of the Iranians. So that makes sense. Then you layer everything else on top of it. If you want to put the other stuff on top and say, okay, China was relying on cheap Iranian oil. China was relying on cheap Venezuelan oil. Trump just took both of those away from them. Now the Iranians are going to shut down the Straits of Hormuz for the next week or two as they bomb ships over there. But we have another supplier. Now we have Venezuela is now supplying crude to the open market. So it's not going to impact. So I think a lot of these pieces were being moved into place. Forget about all the military hardware that was being moved into place that took a while for it to get there. The Gerald R. Ford just got there a few days ago. So there were a lot of things that needed to be moved into place. And the pundits, the people out there, the Karens that are screaming, no war with Iran. Funny, I have a second thing for that. But they're not taking into account
I thought you were going to say you have a cousin named Karen.
No, I do. But they're not taking into account the merits of the war that we're preventing by taking out Iran, and definitely not taking into account what this does with the U.S.-China relationship. As far as the Karens that are, decrying this war, we have a meme. I'm going to put it up on our Instagram and our X, but it basically shows the women in Iran celebrating this war and the woke women on American streets protesting this war. And that just shows you just how clearly these people are off. They are off their rockers. They have no idea what they're talking about. I don't even engage with them anymore. It's not even worth it.
Golan, I really want to change it from Karen to Kasparian. I think that would be so much more fitting. Let's just call it for all the Kasparian.
From here on out, it's a Kasparian.
Yeah, I'm just tired of I'm tired of the Kasparians out there, and I have no idea why Patrick Bet-David hired this insane. I mean, you're talking.
Makes no sense, but I do want to point out that with Iran now out of the picture and Venezuela out of the picture, there's only two allies really left for whatever's left of the Iranian regime.
Yeah, and I also think, Golan, it's really important to point out with Iran launching at everybody in that region, they've made that region stronger right now. I mean, when you talk about hope for the future, everybody there right now is being shot at.
It's a very hopeful sentiment.
No, but at the end of the day, they're going to realize, hey, we need an Iron Dome. We need a David's Arrow. We can't be reliant that one of our neighbors is going to not go rogue on us. And Iran, Golan, just went ballistically rogue as we predicted. And I think it's again, as men brought up, we're 36 hours in forever war. The Ford got there on Friday. People make it sound like the Gerald Ford has been parked there for 6 months.
Friday,
and Israel is
for a weekend, go home Monday.
Yeah, Israel's charging it, docking fees over there. This is remarkable for less than 2 days into something. Look at what we've accomplished in less than 2 days. Okay. It's again, something President Trump, every U.S. president has tried to negotiate or made a promise that this would stop. President Trump actually did that. And by knocking President Trump, you're knocking MAGA, you're knocking Hegseth, Rubio, Susie Wiles as chief of staff, all these amazing people that have put a lot of thought and time into this. This was not something they just said, Golan, And again, I go back to this, to Friday's show that you weren't here. When President Trump said help is on the way, he meant it like all of us meant it, like help is on the way. And then a general had to tell him probably, we can't do it that quickly. But he wanted to help right away because there's nothing that kills Trump more than watching people die unnecessarily. So God bless them.
By the way, even if you disagree with this administration, even if you are not a fan of Trump and you're not a fan of Hegseth and you're not a fan of Rubio and you're not a fan of everybody you just mentioned, you can look at the outcome and say there is a people that have been held hostage for nearly half a century that have just been freed or have been given the opportunity to be freed for the first time. And the previous administrations were shipping over pallets of cash. We're trying to make deals and saying, maybe I'll let you keep enslaving your people, throwing any dissidents in prison, torturing them, hanging gays from cranes and, killing women for uncovering their hair. The idea that anybody on the liberal side of the equation wouldn't be cheering this on means that, I hate the idea of Trump derangement syndrome. I believe it. I believe it exists. But I hate the concept because I'm like, yeah, but at a certain point, you get to kind of be clear-eyed and rational. I don't believe there is any clear-eyed rationality anymore because anyone who was
Go on. Yeah, that's gone.
No. It is gone. But I kept trying to hold out hope, like at a certain point, this will reverse itself. But I'm seeing now people who I know I knew, I should say, or I thought I knew that always seemed like they were, even if they were misguided, they were compassionate. Even if I disagreed with them, they were trying to do the right thing. And now suddenly I'm watching the Malala Yousafzais cheer on the Hamasniks and cheer on the IRGC and spread propaganda. I'm watching Greta Thunberg, she's here for the environment, and then she's just clearly just a shill for the terrorists. I'm watching all of these people and civilians too, who were anti-Jewish, anti-Israeli, and now that means they also have to be pro-IRGC. It's just captured ideologically. There is no logic anymore to any of this.
Before we go back to Guy quickly, Variety, the Iranian Independent Filmmakers Association, supports U.S. and Israeli attacks in Iran that have killed Supreme Leader the Ayatollah Khomeini, or as they call him, Ali Khomeini for short. Al. But go on, and somebody posted, well, where's the rest of the Hollywood community? It's amazing that they were, talking about this. Remember during Gaza, they were always talking about the independent filmmakers. Well, the independent filmmakers in Iran who have been detained or who have been killed are saying, we support Israel, we support America. Hollywood, not so much. Go on.
There's a friend of Guy's and mine just posted a picture that she saw a woman at a rally holding a thing that said, "Thank you, Bibi and Trump." She didn't want to show her face on camera just in case, because the haters are so insane. But this is an Iranian woman saying thank you. And that's the thing. If you look at the Iranians right now, and I'm not, again, the Persian people I'm talking about, I'm not talking about the IRGC. It's really important to continue to separate those things. It is joy. It is celebration. It is catharsis. You're talking about inside of Iran and outside of Iran, spontaneous celebrations erupting in the streets, especially the moment it was announced that Khomeini was killed. People are literally dancing in the streets, cheering, lighting fireworks. What was the phrase you said, Guy? You said it was the dream he didn't dare yet to dream. Like, this is all of them right now, and this is not a marginal group. This is not just a couple of fringe groups that don't like the people, that didn't like the IRGC. This is across the board. You're seeing within the IRGC, there's, we're going to do a 40-day mourning period, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. But the people themselves are genuinely celebrating. So when you see all the silence amongst the Hollywood crowd, or all the silence amongst those who are the bleeding heart, I'm here as a humanitarian BS, who have been absolutely silent, or worse yet, hands off Iran, hands off Cuba, like Mark Ruffalo was doing. Those people, deserve to be in prison for as far as I'm concerned. These are the enemies of everything good.
And you're being extremely kind with that. And Guy, it's somewhat, again, we go back to the media. You had And by the way, the 40 days of mourning, let us know when they're all mourning together. It would make the jobs of Iran and Israel a lot easier. So if the 40 days of mourning could occur in a certain square, please let us know. But Guy, you're seeing all over the streets celebrations around the world, of Iranians who have been displaced all over the world. What does the media try to pick up on? The people that are still loyal to the Ayatollah. That's the narrative they want to show. They don't want to show everybody celebrating the fact that this genocidal lunatic, with a soft beard, as the Washington Post so eloquently said about him. But they're not showing us those pictures, Guy. And again, the media sucks.
The media are complicit. The media are complicit because the IRGC, the Iranian Revolution, was a revolution of Islamists and communists overthrowing a monarchy. It aligns ideologically with a lot of the media today, and it's really hard for the media to face the fact that they've been supporting the bad guy for 50 years because it's that "am I a baddies" meme. So the media are complicit in this, but I think one of the really fascinating things that you're touching on here as well, I watch, during the war with Gaza, I would watch hours of scenes coming out of Gaza. I've watched hundreds of hours of scenes coming out of Israel. I've watched scenes coming out of Tehran. It's remarkable to see that in the videos coming out of Tehran, when you see, and Iran writ large, when you see locals posting videos of the attacks hitting, they're not afraid. You hear the commentary in the background, and you hear these people overwhelmed with joy, like oh my god, like they're happy because they see what's being targeted, and they go out into the streets to celebrate because they know that they're safe. They know that the planes overhead aren't coming for them. They know the planes overhead are coming for their enemies like avenging angels, right? And you can see it in the videos. You see in the videos that they're dancing in the streets of Tehran. Can you imagine people going out to dance in the streets of Tel Aviv after a rocket hit in Tel Aviv? Of course not, because they know that the Iranians are firing rockets to try to indiscriminately kill anybody they can in Tel Aviv. The people in Iran, particularly the young people, particularly the people who are out in the streets begging for this government to be overthrown, they're dancing in the streets because they know they're being protected and not attacked. And I think that no one is emphasizing that. No one is actually showing people this is how safe they feel in what we're calling a war, because they know that they are being protected by the planes above them.
Well, they know they're also not being targeted by the planes above them. This is something that is really important too. They're not afraid, unlike what the media is trying to portray, of course, with like the girls' school and all of that, is they're not being targeted because these are precision attacks, scalpel sharp attacks.
But it's more than that, because these planes are taking out the infrastructure of oppression of the regime. They see the IRGC headquarters being destroyed. They see the headquarters of the Iranian
But
TV.
that's my point. They know that those are the places being targeted, not them.
Right, but they see, it's not just that they know that it's not them being targeted. They see that the people oppressing them, the people that are being targeted, they see their own liberation in the air above them, and they come out and they celebrate it. They sing, they cheer, they cry, and you hear it in the video, because one of the interesting things when you see videos coming out of war zones is the person recording the video almost always says exactly what they're feeling at the time, because it's a really difficult moment to think about what am I going to say to sound cool on the internet, and you hear joy.
I misquoted. The quote that I had was the video showing the Iranian women dancing in the streets says Iranian women celebrating their freedom. And then just below that is a video of Americans demonstrating it, and it says American women protesting it. And I thought that summed it up so well. It was so spot on. I also just saw that the Iranian regime bombed a hospital in the Palestinian territories, but you're not going to hear any of those woke celebrities, Mark Ruffalo or anyone else, come out and talk about it. It was the Al something or other hospital just got hit. Yeah, you're not going to hear anything. Nothing.
So can I also point out, and I know we're coming up to time, but I just want to make sure that we get this in because it's important. President Trump gave an incredible 5-minute long speech today in which he gave an update to the nation about the state of affairs, in which he obviously notified the nation about the death of the American soldiers and the tragedy he prepared the nation with the fact that this may not be the last. But he also said something really important, which is that people from the IRGC are calling America to begin defecting. Why does that matter? And he's not he's not the only person that I've heard say, he's not the only source I've heard say it. I'm hearing it from multiple directions, so it's probably not just bluster. A regime collapses in three ways. One, when they lose control of the people. Two, when the infrastructure fails. And three, when the method of the means of control turns on them. In Iran, the people have turned on the regime. The infrastructure is a mess. The thing that's missing that would be a very good leading indicator that the regime is on its way out is high-level defections from the IRGC or from the Iranian army. One of the things that I believe that has been happening in the past month is trying to put pressure on those people. And you can hear it in the words that Trump uses. You have a choice. You can have full amnesty. So you can do the right thing and have full amnesty, or you can die and it'll be a very horrible death. That is the last leading indicator for the collapse of the regime. And if, as the president says, there are hundreds of people starting to phone it in, it doesn't take many high-level people in the regime to phone it in for that to be the end of it. And so when the president comes out and says that, that means that it's not just that, it means that the campaign is working, and it means that the regime is at least shaking. Whether it means that it ends today or tomorrow or in 3 months' time, I can't tell you. But I think it's really important to point out that the president has put that out there. And by putting that out there, that also encourages more people who might be on the fence or might be thinking, I don't know, if I make a call, am I going to get killed by the regime? That opens the door to that happening too. That is a really, really, really meaningful speech that the president gave.
Yeah, 100%. We have to
I
wrap
just want to
this.
interrupt real quick because there is news that Hezbollah, despite Trump's warnings not to join in, has in fact joined the war. As of about 10 minutes ago, Haifa is currently under a missile attack from Lebanon. Guy, I'm letting you know this on the air because it's important for you to be aware that they're asking for your perspective over on NBC News. I just sent you the information. Go ahead and respond when you can, but mention the podcast. But in all seriousness, this is a major thing, and I hope to God that that Trump continues to stay true to his word as he has until now. And he has said if Hezbollah decides to join the fight, they will regret it. They have decided to join the fight. I really,
Well,
really
they'll
hope
regret
they
it
regret it.
because they'll regret it because Israel will go supersonic on them at this point. Israel is not going to risk Hezbollah in any area of Lebanon to exist in any form. So if I'm Israel, I say to the Lebanese people, you send those messages out just like they got into which is amazing, man. Think about that. Israel got into the phones of the Iranians using the app, the prayer app, to give them warning, to give them suggestions. They sent them, right, Guy, 3 messages on the prayer app, which is absolutely incredible. So send the message to the Lebanese, get the hell out of the way. We are coming after Hezbollah immediately.
By
And
the
just
way, the
take them out.
Lebanese government also warned Hezbollah not to get involved. They said not to get involved with these action theatrics.
Yeah, but that's like Dave Smith warning us.
No, but there is a difference. There is a difference because they haven't done that prior. Even if it is lip service, it's the first time that kind of lip service has happened. So this is a different thing. I think everyone is smelling what Trump is cooking right now, and I think that both Trump and Israel is ready to respond to this. But at the moment, I hope everyone in Haifa is staying safe.
Can I add to that from the Lebanese perspective,
Guy, you're in Israel. You could add as much as you want. We feel terrible for you. Okay? I mean, you're like the 90-year-old man that can't walk
I
right now. Whatever
I
you
have
need.
never been as protected as I am right now. There are hundreds of Israeli pilots, American airmen, and Israeli soldiers manning every imaginable defense system. Despite the fact that I'm existentially nervous, which is why I keep looking around, and I apologize for that. I know that I am being protected in a way that I have never been protected before, and I've been doing this for 2.5 years. So we're there. What I do want to say though is that this might be the best thing that's ever happened to Lebanon, or at least the best thing that's happened to Lebanon since, I don't know, they got cedars. Because the Lebanese government for the past year have been unable to bring Hezbollah to heel. Right? When Donald Trump took office, the first thing that he did was make Israel and Hezbollah stop fighting. He called that ceasefire and he said that Hezbollah was to disarm south of the Litani. He gave the Lebanese government a chance to do it themselves, and they have been unable to do so. I would wager that secretly they've been praying that Hezbollah would jump into this fight, because up until now, Israel, based on the ceasefire that Donald Trump got on his first day in office, I think it was, has been holding off of attacking Hezbollah in the south of Lebanon. The gloves are going to come off now. I won't say more. The gloves are going to come off now. The fact is, now Lebanon will have a chance to actually get its independence back as well. So this may not just end up liberating Iran. It may be that Lebanon gets liberated in this war as well, because there is every possibility that Hezbollah does not survive what they've got coming if they've jumped into the war.
And that was your final thought.
I have more if you like, but
Mend, I just want to, say, I really want to thank all three of you. Listen, there's many directions you could do a show like this, and anybody that listens to us on a daily basis, we do speculate on certain things, and I'm not going to share offline conversations that we have because I don't think it's important. And that's for another day of who supports this and who doesn't support this. All I could say is that the four of us support it. Some of us consider ourselves MAGA. Some of us consider ourselves in the middle. Some of us, I don't even ask. I've never asked Guy. Honestly, I don't know. I know nothing of your background, Guy. For all I know, you were, part of a liberation front somewhere in Australia. You don't need to tell me. Men, but your final thoughts on this, it's less than 2 days in, and we really have to celebrate what President Trump has done, celebrate what Israel has done, and celebrate what our troops have done. It is absolutely fantastic. Talk about warp speed. This has been warp speed.
So there's a couple of great things going to come out of this war. One is obviously the freedom for the Iranian people. Two, the unmasking of all of the pro-Hamas people that were out there chanting all that stuff about freeing people. Nobody's free until we're all free. But they haven't said a word about the Iranian people, the 30 to 100,000 that were slaughtered in the streets, or them dancing for their freedom with their traditional Iranian flag and Israeli flag. So they're thanking the Americans. It's also worth noting, something I was trying to say earlier, is that the Iranian Islamic regime has just two allies left, and that's the United Nations and the Democratic Party here in America.
Beautifully said. I don't think anybody cut you off, but that's a great point. And say that one more time, because you wanted to say it before.
The Iranian regime, the Iranian Islamic regime, has just two allies left: the United Nations and the Democratic Socialists of America.
I am going to steal that for a post, just so you know.
I think.
Thank you very much.
I was wondering, you started that sentiment before, but you didn't finish it. I was really curious to hear.
There it is.
It was like, as a screenwriter, I was like, ooh, he planted it, and here's the payoff. Well done.
Who cut you off? Why'd you stop?
Who knows?
No, he trailed off. He did that on purpose. You were Hansel and Greteling it.
Good work. And Golan, again, I say this, listen, yes, I am a massive Trump supporter. I hold no bones about it, and I believe his life was spared so he could save the world. People could look at me like I'm a nut and the guy that's screaming somebody's coming, but I truly believe that. Look at what he's done. Look at what he's done to get us back to where we are. Look at what he's done. You look at around America, and I'm tired of people talking about, well, if he's focused over there, he's not focused over there. He's laser focused over here. That's why he has Scott Bessent working his ass off, probably 19 hours a day, to save our country's economy, which he's done. You look at Venezuela, what he's doing with Cuba, what he's doing with stopping wars, what he's doing with everything. This man doesn't sleep. He's an absolute miracle man, and God bless him, and God bless everybody, almost everybody that he's picked to be in his cabinet.
The interesting thing about Trump, as well as many other things, is that he doesn't chase quick applause. This is something that I've really noticed over time. We talked about it with the tariffs, where I'm like, these are not going to be popular in the short term, because there's going to be some belt tightening in the short term. And he even said, like, hey, maybe you're going to buy one present instead of many presents for Christmas, that sort of thing. But it was long-term play. He plans for big outcomes. He plans for the world to be a better place. He plans for America to be stronger in the future, even if that means a little short-term pain, even for him politically. Right. That means that in the same way that he worked, leverage and revenue tools and things like that, what he was doing with tariffs, it's the same thing he's doing here. There's a strategic horizon, is something that, again, in the short term, people were like, oh, you said you weren't going to go to war, or you said this, or you said that, or you're not focusing only on America. He has a long-term design for all of this. And it's something that I really respect, because most presidents, most governors, most mayors, most politicians in general are worried about how they're going to get elected again, or worried about how their party is going to stay in power. And it's great, of course, if that can happen, and I hope that it does. But it's not just about that. It's actually about making a difference. And the short-term dip in approval and domestic concern is worth it if you see the significant change that occurs in the future. That's something that even if you dislike the guy, you got to give credit. That takes balls of steel to do as a
Yeah.
politician.
And the only person I could compare that to is Richard Nixon. And because, yes, Guy, the reality is we're going to take a hit. Oil prices will probably go up. We'll tap into our, as Men brought up, we'll have it from Venezuela. We'll tap into our reserves. Everybody forgets, what did he like tap into 80% of our reserves? So he kissed the asses of the Saudis who said, screw you, we're not giving you oil. So we got to
After he insulted them, of course.
Yeah. So let's give credit where credit is due, Guy. Take us home.
No, absolutely. I think that at the end of the day, Trump is doing the right thing for the right reasons. And what it's going to do for the world is going to bring us to a world that is safer, better, and where America's future is going to be more powerful, wealthier, and more able to spread or to protect at least the interests of aligned nations. Moving into we're moving into a world where institutions that have been corrupted, like the United Nations, being sidelined by new initiatives, where nations that are entirely corrupt are being taken out by the president. And the end result, if it all succeeds, is the future that we want for our kids.
Well said. And I just want to go to somebody in the Rumble rants. And if you're listening to this via audio as we're closing up, we do the show on Rumble also. Somebody pointed out something. A guy named Lawrence, I've seen him in the rants a couple of times, and he said, and I'm going to quote him on this because I think it's really important. Anybody else notice that the traitorous protesting American women are all ugly? Now, the reason I bring this up is because there's something about being a leftist and being so filled with hate. Doesn't matter how pretty you are, it turns you ugly. Now, I can't objectively look at these people and say whether they're attractive or not because their actions and the Kasparians are so wrought with ugly. They are just so ugly on the inside that it doesn't matter what their outsides look like. So, just stop being ugly and stand for something. I hope that made some sort of sense, and I'll probably see them on my dating app later. So with that being said, I want to thank you all. I will be back tomorrow. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. There aren't three people. You three, and a few more people I know are the only people I trust when it comes to information about this. So everybody out there that's listening, you're blessed to get from Guy, from Golan, and the dude their takes on this position. Your views are not geared towards Republican or Democrat. Your views are geared on a moral compass that's 100% correct. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I thank everybody out there that's been listening and following and then encouraged us to do this podcast today. Thank you. And I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.